Fargo. He's like, he teaches working at the bank, you know what I'm saying, in banking, and it's like, they're not making that. Even if they were PE teachers, they're not going to make their money back, to pay their student loans efficiently, you know what I'm saying? So it's going to help them as well. So I think they probably tell the people in Wisconsin to shut their up.
Yeah, and I feel you on that, and I think that yeah, I just think the way that they framed this, I really wish they had framed it in a better way. One of the big issues that the Wisconsin group keyed in on was Pell Grants and how Pell Grants are historically given out to Black and Brown people. And so, therefore, it has to be some racial motivation. And of course, the White House did you say that this is a game changer for creating a racial wealth gap. And unfortunately, I just think that the White House could have framed it better, especially since they knew what they had to do with the Farm Bill and how they had to put it into the Inflation Reduction Act and not say this is for Black farmers. So I definitely think that this could have been, and who was it? I think it was Michelle. Somebody said that they felt like it was framed the way it was because it allowed Republicans to be able to come at the Pell Grant part of the debt reduction and challenge that. And maybe the powers that be knew that that wasn't going to pass anyway. So let's just put it in there and see. And it was going to be challenged at some level in some place. I hope that was not the case, and I hope that we'll see. We got until November, I believe, when the money is supposed to. When the website is supposed to go up, and we will see what happens. And hopefully everybody that I will be keeping everybody abreast as much as I can. Maybe even doing a special room when that website goes live to make sure that we know. I think Black people are really good when stuff comes to money. When it comes to money, I think we're really good at getting the word out. But I would like to just, almost guarantee that we get the word out. So hopefully, that day, I would definitely like to do a room to make sure that we know. Hey, go to the website, put your college loan information in, and let's get popping. So, Brother Charlemagne, your sense in North Carolina, I don't really see this advertised or talked about in Louisiana. Did you see when the announcement was made any kind of news, your regular news stations or your radio station, were they talking a lot about this college loan reduction?
Oh yeah, it was because this is this is a college term, so the college here controls our economy. So it was heavily talked about, because it's a medical school here, and they accumulated a lot of debt, So it was talked about a lot.
Okay, that's what's up. All right, we got one more story in the education field. I thought it was a pretty interesting, small story. It's not a huge story, but it's about a podcast that's just launched for Black parents. And I was like, this is dope. This is really what we need. And I want to make sure everybody knows about this podcast and hopefully, gets a chance to support them as they go through their journey of being a podcast about homeschooling. So again, if you just come into the room, we're talking about Black education news, and we're also talking about Black policy news because we didn't have a room last night. So we're combining both tonight. And our first headline that we just finished discussing was that the Wisconsin lawsuit that was designed to stop the college loan debt reduction program that President Biden put through, that lawsuit was just tossed on Friday from federal court. By the way, the judge that tossed it is a conservative judge who was appointed by President Bush, the father. So also it's really interesting to see how some of these conservative judges are, in light of the craziness and the dysfunction that the GOP is in currently and the lawsuits that they're pursuing, it's interesting to see how conservative judges showing up and actually sticking to the rule of law and not letting it be political. So it's kind of interesting to look at that. But this podcast is about doing it our way, and it's talking to. First of all, it's from St. Louis. That's huge. And second of all, it's talking about parents who are homeschooling. And I don't know anybody else, but for me, whew, being a parent today is a whole different ballgame. And a lot of times I think that, especially with the little ones, there's a great Instagram account called Do Not Have Kids. So the word do not have kids underscore. It's hilarious. Little girl, I think the last video I watched, the little girl was eating chalk and she's telling her parents why she was eating chalk. It's like these little kids is something else. They are, and I get it, people who probably haven't had kids the last 20 years, like, Martin, please, these kids nothing. We didn't have this, we didn't have that. I get it. I hear you. But all the tools and all the technology that we have and all the different things that, even diapers are different and they're more sustainable or more, they hold more stuff than they did back in the day. The blowout diapers back in the day, man, everything got messed up. Today it doesn't. So I get we have a lot more tools. And this is my first child in 17 years, almost 20 years. But you do start to feel as a parent that you're kind of alone in this, particularly Black parenting, I think, because people are just not talking about it. So I love the baby Instagram accounts that do talk about it because it's a lot. If you're being a parent today, it's a lot. And to know that there are other parents out there or even learning from other people's experiences, man, it can make a big difference. So I'm excited for this podcast, and it's being supported by public radio, primarily because I know that, homeschooling kids is not an easy job. It's just when you look at this article and you see this mom and you see, the amount of kids around that table and just, it's a lot. And you like, there's no, oh my God, can't wait for the kids to go to school. It's like, no, they're just going to the kitchen. That's their school. They're just going to the family room. That's their school. There's no break of being a parent. And I think that's another challenge. So I'm excited for this. Brother Charlemagne, as it's been a long time since you had kids, you got the grands. Do you think that Black parents in particular have the tools that are necessary today to really be good parents? You laughing? You laughing? You laughing? Well, a good parent today is like, yeah. No, go ahead.
Here's the thing. And this is me. I was raised by my grandmother, right?
Okay.
So I was raised with that iron fist type thing. And that's how I was raised. So I raised my kids with that same iron fist. Give or take. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And so honestly, people that I see my age that had kids, just being transparent, I had my first kid when I was 15. And a lot of people had kids early, in the South. Like the old joke say, we ain't had cable, so we ain't had nothing else to do. But it was like people tend to become a friend of their child versus a parent of their child.
Right.
And you have to keep that Short answer is yeah, they're ready, but then you got to be on top of what's going on. You know, you got to be on top of their social media. You got to be on top of the schools. You got to be on top of the teachers, the coaches, everything. You know, because it's like just here in this little area, it's so much. You know, we had a school fight breakout a couple of weeks ago, and it was like 5 kids got stabbed. Friday night, kid leaving a football game, he got shot in the leg. So it's like those type of things, and I'm in a small community. So imagine living in the inner city, facing these things. Your child will go to a football game, and then boom, they get a call from the hospital. Your child gets shot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like so many, outside influences for our kids this day and time. It's like it's really sad, you know. And me and my grandkids, I definitely monitor, when they with me and try to tell my daughters, my sons, hey, take a look at these little puppets. Make sure they're not saying anything out the way because they look like cartoons, but it ain't always cartoons. So yeah, man, I really don't have a real answer to that, man. It's just like it's tough this thing time. I must say.
Well, I think one of the things that can definitely impact our parenting is the school system. And I think that the question I had was really around having all the tools, and this particular podcast is launching around Black parents who are homeschooling. So like you choose to, like you said, try to protect your children by keeping them home. And honestly, it's a lot of people who are teaching our kids that shouldn't be. And I did forget one story. I do want to jump to that story in a few. But so you do all that and you say, I'm a homeschooling child. And then there's really not a lot of support for that. Just, horrific that, like you said, you try to really protect your child by saying, okay, I'm going to, not keep them in that school system, keep them home. And then you're at home, you're not really supported by the system, obviously, that doesn't want you to have your children at home in the first place. That said, I think that we definitely have more tools than we had, back in the day. But I do believe that we also, although we have more tools, we are more isolated than ever before.
I think like you said, I think the social tools are lacking. The education tools are there. I think the social tools are lacking.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I do want to go to this story, which is, trigger warning. It's a story of abuse of our boys. And it was perpetrated by, what I look at, I see this as white privilege because the young men who were boys but now are men, they were targeted. This won't show it. Dang it. Okay, let me see if I can find a different article. They were targeted by their football coach's daughter, who was a trainer at their high school, and this was in 2007. So it's not necessarily a story that has to do with today, but I wanted us to discuss this because it's where we are in society when it comes to listening to our kids tell us that they do not feel comfortable. I really want parents to take that lesson away and really think about when your child comes to you or you hear, you might be picking up your child from school or just overhearing something. And when these kids are concerned, I need us to take them seriously. The young men had reported, that this person was abusing them, and everybody dismissed it as boys having raging hormones. And dang it, what the heck's going on? And so the story is coming out of California. I'm trying to find a link that will work here. I don't know why this is not working. And it's 6 different football players who alleged their coach daughter, who was a athletic trainer in the high school, targeted these boys for special treatment, quote unquote, over a 6-year period, at all kind of places. And one young man said he was, forced to have relations with her 50 times. And just the fact that nobody listened to these boys who are now adults, and there was nothing that was done. And it's almost 20 years ago that this is finally coming to light. And I wanted to juxtaposition this article with what just happened also in California. I don't know if anybody saw this, but there was a whole sports department that was taken offline because they instituted a fake slave auction. I don't know if anybody saw that in the news, but it was horrible to watch this video that was videotaped, and our boys were auctioned off with their hands tied with rope around their neck as slaves. And I get that this hazing happens in football, and this playfulness that consistently comes up in football programs as just playfulness is horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, that was sick, man. I saw that. That made me sick to my stomach. That was bad.
Yeah, so for some reason this article, I'm trying to put it up and it won't pop up. The thing that in both of those scenarios, I'm so happy that someone released a video. Let me see if this will work. In both these scenarios, the powers that be knew what was going on. And there we go. Okay. Yeah. So this woman targeted these boys. Again, like I said, it was 2001 to 2007. So almost 20 some years ago. But I want to make sure that, these stories, these type of stories we discuss and we let people know that, hey, this happened. This wasn't our boys making up stories, even though, it took almost 20 years for this to come out the truth. Her father walked in on her and he refused to report her. So, we got to listen to our kids. We absolutely, positively have to listen to our kids when they tell us something is wrong in their school. It just, as crazy as it may seem or outlandish as it's 2022, who would act out a slave auction? It's like there's no way that would be a thing, right? In 2022, no one would think that that's cool. That's impossible, right? Well, that happened the same way that these poor young men were abused by this particular athletic trainer for a matter of 6 years. It just reminds me of that scandal at what was it? Charlamagne, is it Penn, Pennsylvania State?
Yeah, Penn State, the football.
Yeah.
Assistant football coach.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the takeaway for me is just to make sure that we're listening to our kids, make sure that we are examining, when they tell us stuff, we want to make sure we are tapped in and tuned in and not just dismissive of them. I love what Michelle just said in the chat. She says that tell my nieces and nephews they can tell me I got them. That's right, Michelle. Auntie showing up. That's what's up. Yes, Auntie.
But Mark, on the flip side, it's like sometimes, some of these parents get so caught up in their kids' athletic ability. These, private schools or especially schools, and like you said, they don't know how those kids are treated out there. And they're looking at their, getting a scholarship, this and forth, but it's like, and what sacrifice do you allow this to happen? I think that's a problem too. This day and time, it's so competitive now. Everybody looking for that competitive edge. And see these kids to these schools, like you said, is out. You know, it might be 4 or 5 kids on the team, and the rest of the kids are white. But you send to the school because you feel like he or she get a better chance to go play Division 1 football or basketball or what have you. Getting treated like crap every day. So it's like, at what expense do you need for your education? You know what I'm saying, or a scholarship? So I think that's another thing the parents need to take a look at that as well. You know, I don't
this is a place they can all hang out. And then some of them will get disrespectful with the parents. Some of the parents are like not putting up with that nonsense from the kids, and then it'll be a fight between the parents and the kids, or either between two adults, and it's just a hot mess all over the place. So yeah, that's all I wanted to just comment and talk about.
So this seems to be something that consistently goes on, and I'm wondering why I haven't really heard about this more often. Why? I mean, it's like it wasn't on my radar at all. I mean, I haven't been a part of a high school sports scene for 30 some years.
Look, there's a lot of dirty secrets that go on in K-12 education that we keep from the parents, the public, and definitely from the media. Okay, and we try and handle things in-house, just like any other organization. It's only when you do hear about it on the news, it's a real extreme case, and someone really got upset and went to the media.
Got it. Welcome to stage, Mrs. Day. How are you doing, and what's your share or your point of view?
Thank you so much, Martin, for the invite up. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I guess I'm going to share them in three different lenses. I was a high school athlete, and I was the only African American, and there's two of us in a school of 2,300, 700 in my graduating class. I played 3 sports, all varsity. Ended up going and playing at a Division I college level years ago. I'm going to age myself here, but you do have the toxicity of coaches, trainers, as we've already heard, what trainers and, quote, team doctors do. The AAU circuit, the Pop Warner circuit, junior, AAU track, gymnastics, cheerleading, all of those things. We have parents that send their kids to camps. They send their kids to live with coaches, live with families, in this quest to become better at their sport. And this happened when I was in high school and eventually went to college. At the college level, you do have somewhat of this. The school is taking care of you, so what you're told to do is just a part of the program. You follow the program or you're out of the program. Then the next lens is I was a basketball official, high school, and I officiated at the Division I level. And to see the toxicity from that point of view, and when it involves people having the ability to be verbal about, when a white school plays a black school, and what goes on in the stands, in the student bodies, with the parents, what goes on the court between players is there. So none of this is new. What is new is the availability of a 3-year-old up to a 90-year-old having basically a computer in their hand that involves a camera and the ability to live stream and record with good audio and good video quality. That is what has changed. And what was in the past, a layer of protection that was given to these toxic people, to predators that are involved in it. And I'll land with my third lens. I have a son who played high school sports at a pretty high level. And he's 19 now. He played ice hockey. And when you talk about a toxic environment for our Black girls and boys, there is no other, because that is the last domain of really a sport that doesn't have a lot of Black and brown players in it. And it is very real. I would say his experience and my experience as a parent. And I'll go back to what Casey was saying about single moms. Yeah, you want your kids around, but you also have to be present. And you also have to have a presence where your child isn't going to be taken advantage of by you not being present to see what's going on. But on the other hand, the experiences my son had as far as his color on the ice, unbelievable. The last probably 3 or 4 years, it has escalated because I think people just had more comfort level with being verbal about what was otherwise kept amongst themselves, kept hush mouthed, and now they feel very comfortable to say it from the stands, to say it on ice, to become very violent on the ice. And so I think what is going on now is a toxicity of parents who believe all their kids should be playing football on Sundays, playing in the NBA, and know their kids are not that good. The other part of it is when you have a racial disparity going on, and differences, and people don't want to acknowledge the difference, has escalated the last few years. And this is over. I've been involved in varsity and higher sports for over 45 years, almost 50 years. So it's always been there. It's just now there's cameras to document it. And now there are people being called out about it, where before leagues, boards, all of those were protecting those people that were doing this very thing. And now, whether it's litigation, whether it's violent, threats of being killed when they find out that they're being a predator or they're being toxic, it's being called out more. And then there's a video and audio. But it's real and it's everywhere. And, kids that just want to be student athletes, there is a lot of very harmful, toxic environments out there for them. And I'll yield the mic.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. That's wow. Definitely going to be able to clip your comments because I think that's a part of our conversation we need to have consistently about the sports and how much people are really, focused on sports as a possible, game changer for getting out the hood, we'll say. And I think that it's been a lot of focus on that in the recent few years. I actually thought it was getting better. I guess I was completely wrong. Before COVID, I thought things were people were making better decisions when it came to that space. Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing. That's a lot. Penny brought up a horrific situation in Philadelphia that I remember reading about, and I couldn't get past it. I couldn't dive into it mentally. There's 5 shooters showed up at a football game and shot 6 people, and killed I think it was running back or the quarterback at a high school football game just last week, I believe it was. And it's just this violence around sports. When I say violence, I mean people being killed. It's consistent, and it feels like it's going to rise unless we are really, we really are looking at, can people actually positively engage with each other? This horrific human being who's on the run, killing a 21-year-old Asia because she bested him at basketball. They were supposedly, he was supposed to be somebody that she trusted and was a friend. And the premeditation there, going to drop his kids off, drop his brother off, and to come back and kill her on the basketball court. It's just, we gotta. So I'm really wanting to figure out just, what it's going to take for us as a community to stop and look at these sporting, and it's not the first one. There's another one, you know, in Texas that was I think it was in August. A famous NFL player's brother killed a referee who was just doing his job. He was also a football coach. You know, and the mom who jumped on the Pee Wee footballer because he tackled her son. It's getting out of hand. I mean, I guess it's always been out of hand, but I really want us to start thinking about how to protect ourselves. Is competitive sports something that we really need to, really need to start looking at? Like, can we handle this competitiveness at the point we're at in our community? I'm not caring about it.
What happened yesterday with Deion Sanders?
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Eddie Robinson Jr. It was like, wow.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't seen the video, it's Deion Sanders went to shake another coach's hand. Deion Sanders' school, Jackson State, won. The other school lost, and the coach shook his hand and then pushed him away. Like, don't come near me. That's the second time a Black coach has done something like that to another coach, try to get violent. Or actually, to me, that was an assault. The way he pushed him off of him. He shook his hand. So like, just drop your hand and walk away. Like, turn your back to him. Like, if you're really trying to diss somebody, it's. I hate to be that person that's like, yo, I remember back in the day. But at the same time, like, the stuff that people try today is so simplistic. Whereas the stuff like Malcolm X said, if you hear that I slept with a white woman, especially if you hear a police officer say that, tell him yes. Tell him that it must have been his blue-eyed, blonde-haired mother. And that was like the disrespect in that statement was like, whoa. And it was more than just say I slept with your mama. He called out. My point is, like, that thing that happened yesterday was just so unnecessary, but at the same time, it didn't accomplish what he was trying. I don't know if he was mad in the moment or whatever the guy was thinking, but dude, you don't have to touch another person to disrespect them. You just turn around or refuse to shake his hand, stare at him, and then go and then walk away. Everybody still would have been talking about it. You just would have been, continuing this cycle of violence that we have to deal with in sporting events. So I don't know. I do know I'm not going to support a lot of sporting events, period. Like, I don't support anyway, but like, I'm definitely family and friends like, hey, we're going to go to so-and-so. Nope. And let me tell you why. Here's 6 different reasons why y'all don't need to be going. That's me. I'm not advocating for that for the rest of Black America. But I am saying in Black America, we have to look at these sporting events and we have to look at the competitiveness that's attached to it. And we have to honestly look at how are we going to protect our young people and protect our mothers and our fathers. And this is a serious phenomenon in the last 3 months. It hasn't been like this. I'm not talking about since, going back to March or going back to January. This just happened in the last 3 months. We had the Charlamagne, the basketball coach of whatever the NBA team the guy did something he didn't like and he tried to swing on him on national television. Then we had the Texas situation where the brother murdered a father who was refereeing. Then we had, the situation this week, this dumb idiot murdering a 21-year-old because she beat him on the court. It's the mother jumping on the field. This all happened in the last 3 months. Sporting events, we got to look at these sporting events and say, is it worth it? I always want us to have options. And to me, the options we are facing is it worth us losing our life, our children's life, or our children being exposed to violence? Is it worth? Like, would you go take your child to see, Saw or one of these other horrific movies that psychologically changes you and says what's acceptable? And I think that's the problem that we haven't really had a chance to unpack in a long time. I remember we had debates about sports in the 80s, and it was big. It was like the Christians were like, the America, the cultural sports, and people like, and I'm seeing it play out today. Like, this is, who's it, Donald Glover, this is America. And our addiction to sports, Black America, we really can't afford this. Like, I don't care what anybody says, we cannot afford it. I'm going to PTR. We're going to go to the Black policy news for the last 15 minutes.
I just like to say, thank you for
how are you?
That's a nice way to put it. Yes.
Yeah, no, we can't. I mean, look, there was 8.8 million Black people that should still be on this planet, and are not on this planet because of a racist healthcare system. This is according to a New York State health commissioner who put up an op-ed piece in the Boston Globe this week. 8.8 million Black people are dead over the last 100 years because of racism in healthcare. We cannot afford to now have a cycle of violence that we, go to on our own initiative. Like, it's different, we're being targeted in our neighborhoods by white nationalists and shot and killed at our churches. And, but to go to a pickup game, a basketball pickup game, expect to die, I think that we need to seriously think about how we interact and not allow ourselves to be in situations where we could lose life pursuing an enjoyment of what should be just a friendly, competitive situation. The question, I think, is really, and I'm glad you guys allowed me the space to talk about this, because I've been trying to deal with this mentally for the last 2 days. And I guess the question, because I'm really, really trying to not go to stay in the middle and not sound like some GOP ultra Christian conservative who is saying, God says that we shouldn't be competing against each other. I'm doing my best, because that's victim blaming. But
Hey, Martin,
yes, please. Yes.
Just to throw out more background on that Eddie Robinson Jr. is Eddie Robinson from the infamous era of Grambling State football. That's his son.
Wow.
So there's a history attached to, Deion and Eddie Robinson Jr. played professional football. So when we're talking about what we're putting out there as modeling, these are two very famous, or from a very famous family. Eddie Robinson is known, like I said, he coached at Grambling for a number of years. So that part is also, and unfortunately, instead of talking about Deion Sanders and Eddie Robinson Jr. playing in this game, their team's playing in it, the media reel, the 30-second spot is that, that altercation in the middle of the field. And that's the problem of it, because that's what mainstream and others are seeing, not the history of both those players and what they poured into the game, what Eddie Robinson Jr.'s father poured into the game, and what an icon he was, especially at a historically Black college. They just took a clip of the two of them in the middle of the field having a pushing match.
Right.
That's what's problematic.
Right.
The words after that, the words are still problematic too, because
that's what I was going to.
Yeah, he took a lot of shots at Deion Sanders because of his background. Basically, he played at Florida State, whatever. So he's like, he's not homegrown. Basically, you don't belong here. I'm like, what he's done for that conference, he basically revived it. He gave the life support. And I'm like, I understand what his father's legacy was. I was a big fan of Grambling back in the day because I always supported him, once I started watching football. But at the same time, what Deion has done for the SWAC has definitely helped out the whole program. It helped out a lot of HBCUs beyond the SWAC. And the things that Eddie Robinson Jr.'s said in the press conference, I was like, wow, you were mostly, this is beyond football. It was beyond that football. You know what I'm saying? The issue with Deion. I think, me personally, I feel like his shine was taken away from him because of his father's legacy. And then, Deion came in and basically, Deion's Deion. He's going to be the spotlight wherever he goes.
Well,
and that's what hurt Mr. Robinson.
Well,
but you know what, though? It's also, and I went to Southern. So Southern and Grambling have a big.
Yeah, I was getting ready to bring that up.
No, Bayou Classic every year, but the other thing is, I went downstate Illinois to the southern tip and worked in a district for 2 years, and it's kind of like big time. While you down here, with us, you don't belong. You're not one of us, and I think that's really the undercurrent of all of that. Is that in Deion's mindset, hey, I'm gonna boost this because historically there's always been some really great athletes that have come out of HBCUs, and I think about the late Walter Payton that came out of Jackson State, played for Chicago Bears for years. Okay, but the thing is that we've always needed that boost. We're finally getting it, and that respect. And my thing is, don't be jealous and hateful. Just let it ride, because if Deion Sanders is bringing this positive attention to the SWAC, which we've been needing for years, everybody, benefits. Because like my and when I was in school, Aeneas Williams played for St. Louis Cardinals. He was a big recruit out of Southern, but it's like, I think that there could have been so many more guys from that team that year that could have been recruited out. But that's all I wanted to add in.
So here's where I'm at.
Excuse me. I just want to say we have to. I thank you for all that, because what is it? What is this underlying current? And it's so important to just know the enslavement trait, enslavement demons, this pitting against each other, Black people not being able to support, work together, and uplift. It's a disease.
Speak
and
on
we
it.
be aware so that we can cure ourselves.
Speak on it.
I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to discount what Auntie Cheryl just brought up. I'm inviting my partner in crime to come up. But here's the thing, Auntie Cheryl, and I think that it's one of those things, before we even get to enslavement, on where we are, there's this concept in this country that sportsmanship, like, I'm going to go to the enslavement side, but before we get to enslavement, we actually, I say we, I'm talking about the Black community, believe as American citizens in a lot of this Americanism. And part of the American experience and isms is that you can be a good sportsman and gameship and all this, right? And so the problem with that is that there's nothing on the other side of that. How do you teach a 14-year-old, 17, 21-year-old that you can walk up to somebody, you just lost a game, and this whole stadium is chanting? I brought my wife up because she also, Casey, went to Southern. And I will say, what's the Naima, what's the thing I always do to trigger you? I talk about that school. What's the school that I couldn't remember, was it Grambling or was it the other school? Because there's another one.
Well, Southern, our biggest rivals are Grambling and Jackson State. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Sure, maybe need to do it again, because in this moment I can't remember what you're talking about.
Got it. So I will always try to push her buttons by bringing up either of those two schools and talk about how the Southern rivalry. And the rivalry for me isn't about two Black schools. The rivalry, when I was in Atlanta, it was the same way with the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. These sports rivalries that are rapid. They're just like, people are just ready to get in fights over sports. Like, that this concept that Americans have that they can actually, and it's not just America, we look at it in what they call football across the world. There have been, murders, breakouts, people have been stomped upon at soccer games, but they prefer to call it football. I don't think that human beings can actually take competition. That's my personal belief. I don't think that we're built to take competition. The friendly competition is always laced with this animosity that gets outshined. I'm glad, Casey, you brought up the other part of that is the classism that's attached to, which is the day you brought up earlier about children getting out of poverty through sports. So what Auntie Cheryl just said about the enslavement trade is on top of this concept that we can handle rivalry. I don't think we can really handle rivalry.
Well, allow me to come in and say this is why it's so important with our young minds to instill that this viciousness, this need to control, because one feels so out of control. It's built into the fiber of this land. How do we take a 14-year-old and say, hey, it's friendly rivalry, and we can be happy for someone else who wins and you lose? Oh, how do that? We have to reconstruct from tiny minds, 2 and 3 years old, because this whole system. So I have to always go back to this enslavement trade, because that's the viciousness that was weaved into the fiber and injected into this land and poisoned us. And that's how deep it runs. And then I often think about, Lamar's book. We talking 8-year-old, 6 years old, scouting in our community, 13 years old on a private jet with a billionaire. So, we gotta go. It's just a fact of, and again, I always bring up 12 years, that film, and just that one portion of what I understood. That movie was propaganda, call it what you want, but in my mind, God let that movie out because it lies in distribution on the control. And I was sitting next to my mother, and for the first time, I understood Demon John, screw you, have the baby by you, don't want you. Now the baby in the big house and you in the field. That's the first time it hit me, and I turned and looked at my mom and said, I get it. This feeling of competition. But when I didn't understand it, I chose to kill over drugs. So if we go down and at least mention the root,
Yeah, well, Auntie, here's the thing with that, and I think it's deeper.
Be careful when we say slaves. We're not slaves, we're enslaved. Yes, we can, because we're not dark and chopped. We got to start from the beginning with our babies. Thank you, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, I get that, and there's Lamar's book. There's 40 Million Slaves talking about the basketball trade, but I think a larger perspective. The reason I'm saying "but" is because it is a lot deeper than the slave trade. Because when you look at these, sorry, my wife just sent me a text. Zora was telling my wife that this show is interrupting her Sesame Street watching. So choose one. My child grabbed the phone to turn off the Clubhouse. Oh, these kids. But there's a great movie we talk about watching, and it's called Exterminate All the Brutes. And in that extermination, to Auntie Cheryl's point about enslavement, but before the enslavement, there really was this concept of classism that these global powers were project on others. And it is, to me, the deeper concept that I'm above you. And yes, part of that is played out through the slave trade. And it's in that movie. If you get a chance to watch this documentary, it's phenomenal. Exterminate All the Brutes. It's on HBO Max. It's a 4-part documentary. When you look at
A couple of times I've got to watch it.
Yes, you do. Yes, please. When you look at the church of that time. This is going back before the slave trade, and what their policy was on people, like the ability that another person has to choose and say, these people are lower than me. And I think that's where I get a lot concerned, because we look at slave trade, we look at black, white, we look at power dynamics, and we also, as Auntie Cheryl said, look at what happens in that trade. The other part of that, though, is what allowed someone to create this system, or what made people believe they should create this system. And I look at sports, and I look at, is the danger to me with competitiveness. It comes back to this belief system: one person is better than the other person, and the concept that human beings, we can, as imperfect people, we can actually control our feelings. We can actually be on a field, stop each other down, or box each other, and then come and hug each other. And like, I get it that, you know, it's a great concept, but I think we're so broken down, especially through COVID, that, and we are so in need of mental health and rest and resetting our lives. Can we actually handle competitiveness? We are ultra broken right now. We are ultra broken. We have never, my generation, 51, we have never experienced, we experienced the gasoline crisis, we experienced, you know, government cheese, and we experienced super poverty in some cases in the 70s, but we've never experienced our families being slaughtered through an invisible disease that we couldn't do anything to protect ourselves. And exasperated on that is that we didn't have sick days, we couldn't stay home, our children weren't coming to school. So all this stuff happened at one time, and we haven't recovered from that, to the extent that our little children, you know, trigger warning, are committing suicide, double that of other races. Like our little kids. Like it's so I really look at this competitiveness.
Yes, everything like you said, in addition to this hierarchy need. I just can't get past anybody else's race. I just pretty much get stuck on mine, you know. But you're right. In addition to those things are compiled, and as far as us being broken right now, we must be broken in order to be made. We must be broken in order to ever get made.
Yeah.
It's all a process. It's all a journey, and as rough as it seems, we must always know it's meant to be. It's meant to, because if it wasn't meant to be, it would be happening. So we gotta make sure we interject, because it's all about strength now, you know, and belief. We got to. We can't just speak it without understanding. We broken so we can be built. And I believe there are some things going to give. Only way I've lived my life.
And Martin, I think we have to look at discourse. We, you know, young men, for example, you just threw hands. There's no throwing hands anymore. I'm going to go, and, you know, I'm in a community where every day, you know, we have males 15 to 24, that there is gun violence against each other, and it lives 1 to 2 every day. It is a fatal encounter with gun violence. But the discourse in agreeing to disagree is gone. It has trickled down into sports. And I tell parents all the time, this NIL, you know, name, image, and likeness, has caused an amping up. I like LeBron. I'm not talking bad about LeBron, but LeBron did a disservice to every parent out there that thought their kid was going to be able to leap from St. Vincent St. High School in Akron, Ohio, and be, you know, LeBron James. So this trickling down of the higher level discourse is trickling down into sports. And this NIL, where now parents believe their child has to be positioned in a way to get these, you know, NIL contract, you know, with different corporations and different.
What is the NIL for those who don't know?
And there's no 8-year-old. There's no 8-year-old that they can say is going to do anything at the college or professional level. differentiated from us 20 years. I never saw an 8-year-old, no matter what their ability, what I did, I saw a phenomenal skilled 8-year-old, and their parents or their coach just screwed them up. And when they were supposed to be in high school playing varsity sports, guess what? They were burnt out, discouraged, or had a poor experience. And so that's where we're at. And going back to what you said, when we take that into the community and think that's the out, that's where kids are transferring. They're going to programs they don't need to be in. They're going to places where they don't have the scaffolding or undergirding to be successful academically, so that they can go to college and be successful academically and come out of those colleges with degrees. That is not the push that we are doing in our community. We, if they're going to be an athlete, we push that. My son was a student athlete. I could give a rat's butt about whoever was saying whatever. You are a student athlete. And guess what he picked to do? He's a student now in college because he wants his degree. He wants to be able to do co-ops so he can be marketable when he graduates. So that's where I think the problem lies, is the lead up to this. And now here we are, where we can't even teach our kids to have civil discourse because they don't even see civil discourse with the adults that are around them. I yield the mic.
Yeah, I appreciate you. That was excellent.
I agree.
And so, what I was asking, what does NIL mean? And was told in the chat, name, likeness, and image. And it's a tool for talented athletes to make money using a name, likeness, and image. I think we definitely have to have another day to unpack some of this. I brought up some really good points about assumptions people are making about that. And also I'm concerned about the kids that do make it and what choices they have and what, like you said, being burned out at 15, 16, and 17, or don't know they're burned out. Like, a lot of the medical professionals are starting to realize that they're burned out through this COVID scenario, and they're choosing to reset and go into a whole different career. And I think that that's where we are as human beings in general. We're actually in a great reset and figuring this out. So I would love to have you back and just to unpack this a little bit more around student athletes and just what are some of this possible solutions. I know we had I think it was, I want to say maybe March, we had a big room where we were talking about this topic of sports and athletes. And then, what was it, Charlamagne? Someone got really upset because we were saying that, we weren't saying it, but one of the topics came up around
about the women in sports.
Well, I thought it was more about the athletes not making money in college, and people had the assumption that because you played on a football team, you got a full scholarship, that meant you got a free ride for food, or you got free money, or and that wasn't the case. We had some athletes come in, some college athletes who were really upset that they've been on that bag as well. They got a chance to unpack it on our stage about, look, it wasn't fun being a student athlete because that slightly can be different, now, because amateur athletes can make money off their name, image, and likeness. So I would love to see, to today.
Hey, shout out to Dawn Staley. Dawn Staley got her whole entire team. The NIL. So even the walk-on players, I think it's $25,000 for each one of our players. So that's
Yes, 25. It's 25 a year. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's schedule a time to have Michelle says a full ride doesn't cover tampons. That's a hashtag, Michelle. You need to go ahead and tweet that out. I love that. Yeah, especially since yesterday was period day. I don't know if anybody celebrated, but yesterday was National Period Day, to talk about women and being able to at least have access to feminine hygiene products and not have access to that. So yes, I totally align with what you said. Full ride doesn't cover tampons. And it doesn't also cover medical expenses sometimes. So depending on the school, I think once when he transferred back from Jackson State to a white school because he was concerned about lack of medical access to medical expenses, medical treatment. And as an athlete who's asked to perform at a certain level every single week and throughout the week, medical is a really big issue. So thank you all for tonight. I didn't get to the politics side. We'll do that next week. Just giving you a preview. This is a flyer that went out this week that they had a conversation in Georgia around the Georgia governor race and the Senate race, and 7 radio stations came together. It's called Radio United. Some of those stations, all the stations serve the Black community, but none are Black owned. But I don't know if you noticed something on the flyer. There are no women moderators. So 7 radio stations got together and they could not find one Black woman at their radio station to moderate this conversation. With 4 women that are being on the stage, being questioned. And we know the New York Times did an article showed the Black women who saved America last time around and got Warren Ossoff, elected. And then just today, the Washington Post did an article saying Black women are necessary for this midterm. This midterm is going to succeed. Democrats are going to have to thank Black women. And here is a disingenuousness of the media in Georgia. I mean, one of my issues, and I'm going to rant about this on LinkedIn tomorrow, really a big rant, is why the hell is Young Jock here, but you can't have a sister who's smarter than him? I will say it to his face. His co-host is way smarter than Young Jock. You could have her, and she could be the Atlanta version of Angela Yee. But no one saw, this looks so bad. And it is bad, not just looks bad, it's bad. I have Black voice, to not have a Black woman's voice in this conversation? Are you kidding me? And I'm almost basically going to say, give you a preview, I'm going to say, F you, Atlanta media. That is literally going to be the headline I put out tomorrow. Because you decided to bring together these radio hosts to interview people at one of the most pivotal. The main hospital in Atlanta is set to shut down. Grady Hospital is in crisis of being shut down because the current governor, refused to accept the Medicare payments. So who does that disproportionately affect? Yet y'all can't have one Black woman, not 1 out of 7. Oh, F you.
Tell him, Martin, tell him.
This is just beyond ridiculous. And I get it. It's not just Atlanta. I know it's other cities, but I saw this as just egregious. This is just freaking ridiculous. So that is something we'll come back to next week. And it'll give us a week. I'm sure that one of these men is going to respond to what I have to say. So that should be interesting. I'll invite them on. I'll invite all of them to come on our news next week to talk if we want to. I'm not hiding.
Please.
But I saw this flyer and I was like, who the hell? What the heck? Y'all can't find this Black Voters United, or you can it's a bunch of Black women in Georgia that they could have had on this panel as a moderator.
It's by design, Martin. That's by design. It wasn't a mistake.
And the thing about it is, none of these Negroes said, "Ooh, this is a bad look." Some of these guys are old school in the game for a long time.
What made you say it was by design, ma'am? Let's have her. Invite them.
And I'll just start somewhere, and I know I'm going off topic, but
you go on topic.
we when we look at how many times have you saw Kamala Harris speak since she became vice president? How many times, how many people know that the actual press secretary for President Biden is a Black female? So when you have the highest offices in the country suppressing the voices, whether we agree with them or not, many people don't even know. Jen, whatever her name was previous, we saw her at pressers. Most people do not even know that President Biden has a Black female press secretary. So I'll just leave it there.
What are you talking about? Everybody in all the Haitian Americans celebrated this sister. What are you talking about?
I'm not talking about celebrating. I'm talking about.
Hold on a second, Lilia. We don't do that here. We show respect and let everybody, grace and space. So you can definitely come to stage. I usually greet people that come to stage and say, hi, good evening, how are you? And then they tell me how they're doing, and then you can share your point of view.
And for passion, I can hear your passion, Lily. Thank you.
How are you, Lily? Welcome to stage.
Hi, love. Yeah. So she said something about Kamala. We haven't heard a speech since, or like, and then you're talking about the press secretary. Like, why would most people need to know who the press secretary is if they're not in the world of media? So that's irrelevant. People can connect in so many other ways. So I didn't get that point. So anyways, Kamala has done all kinds of things. So I just wanted to do some fact checking there, and then just talk about the point of relevancy. Like, okay, she was celebrated, great. For most people that means something, but at the end of the day, most people don't check into daily briefings. They don't check into guidance and movement of the vice president and the president. That's just day-to-day micromanagement. People care about local elections. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that.
So, Lila, Cheryl, I'll handle it.
Oh, no. Wait a minute. I said after you.
Okay, I didn't hear you. I just wanted, because you were jumping in a lot. So I want to make sure I get to this point that, Lila, this room is designed to talk about policy. So it's actually everybody in this room that comes in this room every Sunday. We all know about the press secretary. We all follow movements. So honestly, as what Sister Day just said, I have for weeks searched for when the press secretary did make a statement. And actually, last week we had somebody who's in the actual press room, Tenji Collin, and he talked about some of what the Sister Day just said. So he's actually the Washington bureau chief. And we don't hear her the way, and we talked about, we wonder what statement she's going to make on this, or what statement, how is she going to word that? Because being a Black person in politics requires you to straddle the fence and do the best you can. Yes, the Haitian community, with which my business partner is, celebrated her, but I didn't see those same celebrations in other communities. And we in this room definitely pushed the fact that she is a press secretary. And to your point about Kamala Harris, we actually covered 2 rooms covering this issue. As you said, people who are interested in policy and politics, we do have an issue of how Kamala Harris has been shut down. And there were headlines. It wasn't just us. There was news headlines about how her voice is being muted. Yes, she spoke last week at I'm also part of the White House press list. And so I was invited to 2 different phone calls where she was talking subject matter stuff. Part of the other issue, being transparent, is the Black media has not focused on a lot of things that the vice president has spoken about, one of which is a $4.7 billion plan that is happening to Black businesses in the DMV area. The only source that spoke about it was CNBC and MSNBC. So part of the challenge I have with the conversation is that what you're saying does not include the responsibility on the Black media that has been failing to me for both of our sisters. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I just want to say, and I thank you, Lila, for your, I guess, passion, your feedback. Thank you, Martin. And most of all, thank you, Denise. I wanted to say that's across. I love the way she set it up, because I says, okay, well, by what are you talking? You know, speak on that. But as a Black female who is continuously, people have said I'm aggressive, and I tell people assertive. It's smoother on the tongue. See, assertive. I'm not aggressive. And I was just on a TV show with all Black men. Not everybody was gay, most gay. I didn't even know I had been handpicked to be the one who was going to catch all the hell. This is across the board in the world. By the time I was shocked, I had to tell them, baby, I don't even flip an egg. Are y'all kidding me? You thought I was going to be one of those? So I love the fact that you said, hey, we've celebrated her. Let's have it more. Let's do that more for Black women, and hopefully it'll get out the back of off of us. Because we are, you know, the salt of the earth, and we're supposed to, like I was told on the show, take the high road. Okay, I laughed. I said I took the high road first and second season as an act, taking over mother. I'll pass the mic.
Sister Day, do you have anything you wanted to share? It's okay if you don't.
Oh, no, I understand what everyone has said, and I think the context of the question was a Black female on that panel. And
Right.
So my response had to do with, by design, that we aren't at the table, we aren't represented in the same areas. So I think that's my clarifying point, was at answering directly about the issue of the panel in Atlanta. So that's my clarification point.
And when we are at the table, I found out we are the be
Right.
I had some form.
Yeah, and what Auntie Cheryl experienced on Fox Soul was, very toxic, as what Vice President Kamala Harris has experienced with domestic threats as of last month, and also, a gunman showed up at her residence and was arrested outside her residence. And so, to your point about when we do show up, we are the meal. My issue, and what I want to discuss next week, is really this panel discussion, that there was no, and I hear what you're saying, Sister Day, it's by intention. Having lived in Atlanta for a number of years, I could definitely align myself with that. There have been some sisters who really shout in the media. Unfortunately, a couple of the ones I'm thinking of, unfortunately, have passed on. But I think there's another generation of Black women that have shown up and stood up, in a light of what we needed to, and getting the vote out and everything. And they were covered by national media. But to your point, by design, Georgia media is muting Black women, and so, and the fact that 4 women are being interviewed on this panel that are running for office, and there's no woman that can, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so that's next week.
And you, thank you to your wife. When I first got in touch with you, it's literally foreign. It's like somebody speaking a foreign language. To be around one of my brothers who don't fold when I'm around, and I hear them trying to give up props to Black women. I don't get it enough. You were strange when I first met you, and I had a microscope on you, and I really think you do care about Black women. You make me feel safe. So I just had to say that. I just saw Charlamagne. I just love y'all, man, for real. And I love all my brothers. But I'm telling you, when I find a Black man talking about I love Black women, and I'm a Black woman, what? God is born, And I'm grateful.
Well, it's unfortunate that's the case. And I think as men, we have to, that's why it's really painful to me to see this flyer. When you search for the Black Radio United, there's no flyer whatsoever on the internet. I got this from LinkedIn, and one of the persons that is speaking, one of the moderators posted the flyer. Otherwise, I would have just said, the press release and everything that's comment. There's a Black woman in the press release. It's the only person listed in the press release is a Black woman, who's the program director. I forget at which station. So, you would think it's Black Radio United. It's a great concept. They're doing a town hall, great concept. They're interviewing the candidates, great concept. They leave off Herschel Walker, great concept. It's like, it's great. Checking all the boxes. Then I see the flyer and I'm like, whoa. And then also we're going to talk about next week is Washington Post. They did a story this week, today rather, about how women are Black women are key to democratic success if there is to be success in midterms. Yet they interviewed no Black women for white women. So that's another thing, and so this is a consistent pattern. And I get that what you're saying today about it being intentional. My challenge to that is that there's a Black woman running NBC News. There are Black different levels now with Lester Holt and other things, and Joy Reid and other. And I'm not talking about the people that are I'm saying those people have Black people that are producing their shows. There's also a really, really cool show that I want everybody to watch if you can. It's called Power Trip. It's a new show out on NBC. It's on Hulu. And it's about 5 young journalists who are deployed nationally. And when you see it through the lens of I don't know if anybody ever watched The Circus, but it's a younger version of The Circus on Showtime. And what it is political reporters who are first time, usually new reporters, being deployed to hot spots like the Texas border, when the governor of Florida illegally flew the immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. They deployed a young Latina from Philadelphia, and her interviews of people at the border and that sheriff who's now investigating whether or not and how the illegality happened has given you a certain perspective. This week, the show is following a young Black reporter who is a sister who was there on the ground on Tuesday when Herschel Walker's story broke about his abortion, paying for his abortion, and his son started, doing what he has done on social media, outing his father. So you catch, from a millennial perspective of covering the news, particularly the politic news, there's been a lot of pushback from older reporters on this show, from older reporters in journalism, about how this is just a fluff, this is reality TV for reporters. And my pushback, and I've been reaching out to some of the reporters, they were super busy, to see if they would call into a Clubhouse, because I really think it's dangerous for older people in media to throw shade at younger people who are just, trying to do their job. Like anybody, they're not, there's nothing sexy about the show. It's like you're running with your camera, you're trying not to trip over cords, you're not respected in the room because you're just starting out. And it's showing that. It's showing the difficulty. And they're living out of hotel rooms and eating out. And to me, The Circus shows that just as an older, more accomplished reporter. So Power Trip is a show you should definitely take a look at. I think it's one of the only shows that show, like The Circus, they show a number of women in the media and who are covering the news. So we'll be back next week. I want to thank everybody for coming in and for sharing your perspective. Thank you so much to today, KC, for your perspectives on sports, and you gave me a lot to think about, made me really unpack myself on competitiveness and get to the heart, because I definitely don't want to include, come at anybody that chooses to be a part of the sports scene. It's everybody's, right to get out there. I just want us to have to try to, at all possible, be in a safe place, and that may not be necessarily unless the person you're competing with. I don't know, but definitely you helped me unpack my issue with it. So I want to thank both of you for that. and everybody for being here. Tomorrow night, we're going to cover money news. We'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 and covering our regular Black money news. And of course, Tuesday is tech news. This Tuesday, we'll be here for tech news. Last week, we did not. And Black health news. And then Thursday, Black creativity. Friday, Black business news. And Saturday, back with Black education. And of course, Sunday, we'll be joined with Colin Tenji, the Washington Bureau Chief of TMZ, to unpack some of this political news on the Capitol Hill. Thank everybody for being here. Please, as always, know that we are unfortunately targets in our own neighborhood. So if your intuition says leave, leave. Protect yourself. Keep your head on the swivel. And as always, as we always say, stay Black.
And in my like voice, stay Black. Not too aggressive.